The ITV report into the Phillip Schofield scandal has been published. The former This Morning presenter was forced to quit earlier this year after it emerged he'd had an affair with a younger colleague, a decision he described as unwise but not illegal. Delivering her findings in the past few minutes, the KC said there was no evidence of a toxic culture at This Morning and that its management made considerable efforts to determine the truth about the alleged relationship back in December 2019. But in the face of those denials of those involved, ITV was unable to uncover the relevant evidence until Schofield's admission in late May 2023. Joining me now, former BBC Executive Principal at South College, Durham University, Tim Luckhurst is with us. Afternoon to you, Tim. I mean, it all seems a bit of a Horlicks to coin that phrase. I can't make head nor tail, really, of what they set out to do and ultimately what they think they've achieved. What are you thinking on this?
Well, I think the report's rather more detailed than you're suggesting, Ian, and I've read it in great detail. Jane Mulcahy KC is quite clear that staff at ITV must be able to speak up about concerns on programmes like This Morning, and that the open culture that ITV claims they've got is not actually filtering down to junior staff at ITV. She says that junior staff still have concerns that if they speak up about such allegations, their careers will be damaged. Now, that seems to me to be quite an important finding in what is, after all, just a summary report. She's given a much more detailed one to ITV. She's also recognised that she went through interviews with 55 separate members of that team, and that amongst those members, only one person hinted that they'd actually known anything about a relationship between Phillip Schofield and the person we have to refer to as Person X, the young lover with whom he was having an affair. Now, I think that that comes across as being a very diligent report by a dutiful KC doing her best to find out. But if what you've got is a presenter who, in order to protect his own career, is being entirely dishonest about a relationship with a young colleague, after all, he was also misleading his own wife, Stephanie Lowe, at the time, Phillip Schofield. How on earth are others supposed to find out? I think that what is really compelling in this is that it comes across as being a cover-up which was being deliberately maintained by Phillip Schofield and his young lover, and that until The Sun broke the story and people began to ask tough questions, there really was in the public domain no suggestion that anyone knew about it. So I'm much less sceptical than you are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to that, Tim. I mean, junior staff saying, you know, we're a bit scared to speak out about stuff. I mean, does that not slightly go with the territory? Wherever you work, if you're a junior member of staff, you tend not to sing like a canary about a rumour you've heard about someone more senior having an affair or some other shenanigans or doing something they shouldn't be doing. I mean, that's just life, isn't it? That's not a specific thing that happens just in the media or at ITV. But on the bigger point, 55 people, one person knew about it. I mean, Tim, you've been round the block enough. You're not buying into that, are you?
Yes, I believe that entirely.
Well, how did I know about it and my next door neighbour, and yet all the people that worked on the programme didn't?
You will have to tell me that, because my response to that would be, if you did know about it, why didn't you speak up?
Well, what was I meant to speak up against? I mean, this was a workplace, at worst, a breach of maybe workplace rules or, you know, the power structure thing, big, powerful presenter, younger, much more inexperienced assistant, etc., but not illegal.
You're a good journalist. If I discovered that a high-profile character who was portraying himself as being heterosexual and happily married was in fact having a gay relationship with somebody else, and this is no sense in which I'm in any way homophobic, but that's about hypocrisy. If I discovered that
it's not for me to burst the bubble of hypocrisy, is it? I mean, I'm not going to moralise about what somebody else does. I couldn't care whether Phillip Schofield was having an affair with a man, a woman, or a person who wouldn't describe themselves as either. That doesn't matter to me or anybody else, does it?
Well, clearly it mattered to a lot of people, because when The Sun put it on its front page, a lot of people wanted to read it, and we're still talking about it.
Well, indeed, and that's also fair game, isn't it? Because a newspaper can look at that and say, hang on a second, yes, this is a person that, you know, I don't know how much Schofield did espouse family values on a regular basis. There were always rumours that perhaps Phillip Schofield was gay. He came out a couple of years, I think it was, prior to this, of course, so that bit we did already know. But to out somebody for having an affair It's quite a tricky one to suggest whose responsibility that is.
I don't think that's true at all, because after all, in this case, there was the issue of the relative power of the two people involved in the affair. Phillip Schofield, a high-profile, very highly paid presenter, a household name, a younger partner who was clearly much junior to him, who had in fact in the early part of his career, as the report finds, been assisted in getting his initial work with ITV by Phillip Schofield, although it acknowledges that he went on to be promoted on his own merit, which I think is an important reflection of the fact that he was actually a talented young person.
Yep.
But there's no question whatsoever that that Phillip Schofield was sponsoring his young lover, giving him an initial advantage way into the television company. These things are abuse of power. It's not about sexuality. It's about hypocrisy. It's about betrayal of his family and his wife. It's about the way that he used his position at ITV. And I think that all of these are legitimate questions. And I think that Jane Mulcahy has looked into them with a great deal of care and diligence and discovered that, of course, because they were embarrassing, they were also extremely carefully covered up. Now, that doesn't surprise me either. People get away with things because they know that they need to disguise them. These things were disguised. That was deliberate. I think that...
I was about to say, Tim, sorry, it's the, out of the oldest playbook in the world, isn't it? Whether you're talking about, Rock Hudson, or whether you're talking about, a famous singer, the world of music, the world of media, the world of fame, the glitz, all that goes with it. I mean, Schofield wouldn't even get ranked in the top 50 for this, would he, in terms of sensational revelations about somebody's private life, which brings me back, really, I guess, Tim, to the point I made at the beginning. Whether, whatever people think about this, it's essentially a breach of a workplace issue. It's not, he hasn't broken the law in any way.
Well, absolutely not, and that's why this has been a investigation by a King's Counsel appointed by ITV to look into their processes and procedures, and not a criminal investigation by the police or the CPS. But as a report for ITV, it's made some quite important findings. Staff don't feel they're able to speak up about their concerns, and junior staff should be able to speak up about their concerns. The open culture is not filtering down to junior staff. That's important. There is still a lot of work to be done, because people in junior ranks at ITV think that if they tell the truth about their bosses, they'll damage their careers. There's got to be a way that these people can feel confident about speaking up. There's also got to be clearer guidelines for talent, i.e. for managing stars, says the KC. So, I mean, it looks to me like a truly rigorous report by a very good King's Counsel, who's been asked to look at what's going wrong at ITV, who hasn't said, no, the whole company's a basket case, far from it, but has said, look, there are some procedures here that you need to tidy up, otherwise these things could happen again. Well, that's a reasonable conclusion and a sensible report. OK.
Tim, always good to chat on these things. Thank you, Tim Luckhurst, with us. We await more detail on that report. I'm really not sure what is to be made of this. It very much looks, despite the detail that Tim outlines there, this is a nothing to see here, Gov moment, essentially.